Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another Saturday night Shadow Chat. Tonight, in honor of one of America's greatest authors and a very good personal friend of mine, I'd like to not just dedicate tonight's episode to the late, great Roger Zelazny, but to discuss what was one of his absolute favorite topics, that being alternate realities and dimensions. For those of you not familiar with his work, he was a phenomenal author. I highly recommend you go out and grab literally any one of his many novels and short stories. He was an incredible author and poet and martial artist and fencer and a very well-rounded guy who gave us so many great works like the infinitely famous Nine Princes in Amber and the entire Amber series, along with so many other books. Let's see. Some of my favorites include The Changeling, The Eye of Cat, um, Lord of Light. I could go on and on about his books. I'm hoping that uh, by the end of the night you'll have found a place and ordered purchased one or more of his books and give them a read. They're definitely worth the time. Definitely something to be gained from reading them. There's a reason why they are part of the appendix of the original Dungeon Master's Guide. He was possibly one of the greatest authors of what was called back then the new age of sci-fi. I was lucky enough to have met him and benefited from his work and his inspiration at a very young age. I had already, read a great deal of his work. A a local bookstore that was literally right across the street from my house. One day, the lady who owned the place, I had asthma when I was a kid, yeah, and she had called my house up and knew I was going through a terrible time with one of my many asthma attacks, and she called me up and said, "Hey, I've got something here that I think you're just gonna love." And I went over there, as hard as it was for me at the time to do so. And she gave me a box set of the first four of the Amber novels. And I was barely able to, haul my butt over there. And she didn't even ask me to pay for them. She just said, "I know you're going to love this." I took them home and I spent the most, the better part of that weekend lying on the couch, just barely able to breathe. And I just absorbed those books and went on to, gather up as many more books of his as I could. And one day at the local comic shop that I worked at, had him as a guest speaker, and I got to meet him. And I told him, of my desire to write and tell stories, and how inspired I was with his work. And he encouraged me to do so. And obviously, almost 40 years later, here I am still doing it. And throughout the rest of my life, up until he passed away at the age of 58, which was far too young. He was, like myself, an avid smoker, and it eventually did him in. And hopefully, uh, I'll learn from that lesson, and one of these days quit. But it's a powerful drug, and I'm working on it. Um, but in the meantime, we are going to welcome another great friend of mine, the one and only Bo from Bo Paints Minis. How you doing? Sorry, I'm running late, man. I was having some technical difficulties, and I finally got my S together, and here we are. So how you doing?
I'm great. In fact, I was a little quantum. I was just flipping through YouTube, and a video came up about the roof of the Empire State Building, and we were talking earlier about alternate realities and possible futures. And I was reminded again that the 103rd floor of the Empire State Building was intended to be used as a parking spot and disembarkment spot for dirigibles. And I love the idea of futurism, which is, a pondering of what might have been and could have been. And I know that we kind of get into it with things like steampunk and atomic punk, but I just absolutely adore not necessarily steampunk and atomic punk, but alternate futures, alternate realities, alternate history, future history, after the order of like Robert Heinlein. Um, so just came up about 5 minutes ago by sheer chance, and was reminded that I needed to check in with you and see what was going on.
Again, my apologies. I had a pretty busy day, and the little guy was going to join us. This is one of his favorite topics. He's already absorbed the concept of alternate realities and dimensions, and in the stories that he's working on, he's incorporating that. But unfortunately, his best friend from many years on ago, who sadly moved far away, uh, contacted him and said, "Hey, let's play some video games online together." And so he will not be joining us, which is a shame because there's a lot he could gain from this discussion. Hey James, long time no see. Harry Turtle Dove is good. I've never read any of him, but I will write him down um, on my list.
Yeah, my little
And
boy is actually at his weekly D&D game across town, and I dropped him and his polyhedrals off on the way back, and I keep thinking one of these days he might like to play a game with his dad, but it's just easier for kids to play games with their friends, and that way it can be
mhm.
his thing, and I want him to have his own gaming experiences, and if in a couple years he'd like to play a game with something that's not a dungeon crawler with dad, then that's fine. But he'll hopefully have some experiences by then, and I've invited the oldest boy to play with us a couple times, but I don't know if he's kind of that socially awkward age too. He's 15, and what 15-year-old wants to play a role playing game with dad?
Well, summer's coming, and I've actually DM'd a game for him, for Jackie and a couple of his friends, and they had a good time. And he's got an old friend, almost as old as the one I was talking about, who had never played an RPG and was an absolute natural. He's kind of Jackie's rival, been so throughout their growing up, and they have a lot in common, and a lot that's dissimilar, but it's it was amazing. He was an absolute natural. The two of them together, kind of made the other kids, feel a little, you know, ill prepared, a little inadequate. I could see that, but it was really nice, and I hope that this summer I can invite the same kids over and enjoy that. But I totally agree. They need to branch out on their own and have that camaraderie with their peers and their schoolmates. It's an integral part of growing up. And with what happened a couple of years ago, them being denied that ability,
Right.
it, any chance I can get to facilitate that, I encourage him to go out and do those things. But this last year, he was really just all about the JROTC and the other things at school, and it just wasn't as big a priority, and that's fine. He's had the experience, he's had the introduction to it. He's on a different path right now, but you and I both know that once he gets into the service, he's going to have a whole lot of time, and there's going to be some kids, some young men that are sitting around the barracks with nothing to do. uh, I'm certain that it will come up, and he will again find his own tribe there. And if not, as long as he's not doing the dumb things like I did and hitting up the bars and the strip clubs at every spare moment, which as you any who know him know that's probably never going to happen. He would probably get kicked out, and not for the usual reasons, but for proselytizing and calling them all sinners. Um, so there's that. Hey, Crafting Gamer, how you doing? It was a lot of fun hanging out with you Friday. The door is open. The link is up there in the chat if you'd like to join us. You too, James L. It's been far too long since we've been able to chat. And Jackie and I miss you. It's been far too long. Uh, Save that for the Air Force, right? Save it for the Air Force, right? I don't even know what it's going to be like with the way things have changed so much in just the last couple of years. But if he keeps it up, he's going to go in probably after college, and with the way he's been going, they give out 1,100 scholarships every year. I think he's going to get one if he really pushes the way he has this last year. Save me a crap ton of money. I'm okay with that. I forgot my Discord. Need to ask Rick for a new one.
Service Academy scholarships. I think each congressman is allowed to give one every year, and each senator is allowed to give one every year. And I think there are a lot of kids that aren't really going for them right now, especially where there's a lot. In California, there's a lot of congressional districts. So it's a good time for him to go out and meet with his congressman and meet with his senator, since they pretty much have
considering he does eventually want to go into politics. I can't think of a better way to learn. Provided he can find the right mentor in that respect.
Just go out and press the flash. Anyway, just not to give unsolicited advice, because none of us like unsolicited.
No.
But
no. For us, that's not a problem. We totally appreciate it, and that's actually a really fantastic idea. I'm gonna jot down here and tell him, hey, let's find a way. At least an email or a letter or two. Get that ball rolling.
Because those
what you working on tonight?
The best grades, they go to the kids who have the best hustle. You got to hustle to get those kind of scholarships, because they don't land in your lap like a lot of tuition. Like a tuition waiver for good grades is different than a scholarship that requires activity and on the part of the person applying. Anyway, so on topic. I like science fiction. I hear you like science fiction. And if you like science fiction and you like alternate reality and alternate history, maybe you've come to the right place tonight, because I'm curious to know how people can incorporate alternate history and alternate reality into their science fiction games.
How
about you, Shadow?
Absolutely. Will you stop? The little guy, the little fuzzball here is desperate for some attention.
Who's the goodest boy? Who's the goodest?
He is the goodest boy. He is. He knows he is, and he was chasing birds all day, and he had a blast. The weather has taken a beautiful turn. We've got a couple of minutes before it will be blazing hot summer here. What you working on the table there?
Oh, it's the same old. I primed a whole bunch of minis, and what I tend to do is I tend to prime. I build them if they're plastic or resin, and then I prime them once so I can see if there are any mold lines or sprue gates that I missed. They're easier to catch with a light coat of paint. So they can see the raised with a little bit of paint. Even if it's black paint, I still tend to see it a little better. And then once I've done that, then after I hit them with the primer, one coat. Then I go with the hobby knife and do any scraping and filing and gap filling. And then I hit them with another coat of primer, and then a third coat of primer, and then I can start. Wow, 90 degrees today. Where are you, hell?
He's in Cali, just like me.
90.
He's in Cali just like me.
We're actually had a bit of rain today up here in the shadows of the everlasting hills. And we had I actually had a sweatshirt on earlier today when I went out with the kids, and it was warm yesterday, but it rained again today, so I'm glad for that. Um, oh, so yeah, it's just the same old. These are some Games Workshop sisters, and I don't know why I picked them up, except I like the way they look. The idea of girls with power armor and flamethrowers has a certain, I don't know, gothic appeal, and I would like to find a way to incorporate them into our game somehow, either as a an allied protagonist or an allied faction on an alternate world or wherever you guys end up going when you leave Space Station Nippur. 28 millimeter RPG. Now I know this guy. He likes his RPGs and he likes his minis, but he likes them like his peas and his carrots separate on the plate. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
I like my minis and RPGs like Reese's peanut butter cups. I
Funny
don't
you
mind
mentioned that. I had one to I had one of those. I've been really digging the really big Reese's peanut butter cups for some reason. So I could just eat one and go about my business. And I accidentally picked up the big kind that have freaking potato chips in them.
I was going to ask you if you had seen those. Actually, I was just going to ask you if you had seen the Reese's
And, and,
with potato chips in them.
and I'm the biggest potato chip gobbler on the planet. That's like if I could only eat one food for the rest of my life, it would be that. And the jury's still out. I had one, and then I had the other one, and I'm still undecided. Um,
Yeah,
it is a good.
I've never had them. That's a no from me. But Mrs. Paints minis, she wants to try them. She thinks that it sounds really appealing to her, and she's always been a bit on the weird side. She married me 20 years ago, so
Well, there's that. They really don't taste like potato chips. It's just like a neutral sort of crunch inside them.
okay.
And see, Crafting Gamer, see, I told you, no live chat is complete without some sort of goofy food talk. I will try to steer this back into the waves of alternate dimensions and realities in just a minute. I want to give a couple of shout outs. James L is in the house. Rick from 28 millimeter RPG is here. Cal, where would I have been without you and Grim, man? I would have never met you and all these other fantastical people in the community. Yeah, you don't like that word? Give me a better one. Um, and we are talking about. I'm really surprised. I'm going to give Bo credit for this topic because it was his idea, and shame on me for not having thought of it. But I've been planning on doing a little tribute to Roger Zelazny for a good long time. I did review his book, and I will be reviewing, believe it or not, the Amber diceless role playing game. I know heresy from some of you think it's blasphemy to
Have you
RPG
never had
without
cards?
dice, but to be honest, for those of you hardcore RPers out there, um, it's actually the best role playing game you could ever play because there are no dice, so there are no mechanics to pull you out of that immersion. I'm gonna have to talk to who, Mr. Shauner himself, about it, because he's like the head guru when it comes to complete immersion and playing that game. That's all there is. There's no talking about it because it's just built in so eloquently to the system. Uh, I was lucky enough to not only acquire the game, but to get to run it a full Amber campaign that mirrored in many ways the original Nine Princes and Ambers all the way to the Courts of Chaos without the players even realizing it what I was doing. A lot of them had never played Red Amber, and the ones that did just didn't see, how it was the same, and without using the same characters. I used, Amethyst instead of Amber, which is what usually people do. They call it Amethyst instead of Amber, and different characters. The whole bit It was a total blast, and it's one of those genres that literally has alternate realities and dimensions, fantasy, science fiction, all baked into it without any clunky you know explanations as to why it works. It's just part of it. Hey, grandma, how you doing? Um, Oil in a cast iron skillet? Huh? What the heck are you? Oh, air fryer. Oh. You know what? 50-50. I used to be all about the air fryer. Now, having uh, addicted my son to hot oil cooking with fried chicken and corn dogs and a couple other things, it's like is real hard to not. Yeah, the air fryer is great, and I still use it for things like tater tots and French fries because those are more likely to absorb the oil. Whereas the fried chicken and corn dogs, they tend to uh, let the oil drip out of them, and you're still good. Cal says, I like Amber and Amethyst. My younger daughter's name is Amber. Well, there you go. That's, I would have done that had I had daughters. But alas, no, just the one guy named Jack. And believe it or not, he is actually named after my favorite Zelazny book, which will remain unnamed. If you want to go look at his library, you'll learn a lot more about me and the channel having done so. Just shh, don't divulge my secrets. Play group at another's house. She's so. What is it about the idea of alternate dimensions and realities that attracts you so much?
I think it attracts a lot of people independent of gaming. And I think we've talked about this before in terms of our relationship with past, present, and future. But I think it gives the people a safe outlet to think about what if and regret and deal with it in a games are not therapy and therapies are not games. But I do think that appeals to that part of the brain. I think that we're kind of wired and without getting too much into quantum mechanics and Einstein's general relativity, but we progress forward in a linearly through time. But I think that thinking about what if and alternate realities is a safe way to move backwards by moving forwards. And then to address things in a creative way. You think about things like Disney's Land of the Future, or in 1959 his Monsanto plastic houses at Disneyland. I think that it appeals to our sense of nostalgia and curiosity. It engages so many parts of the brain, and I'm a fan. I've been a fan of that kind of stuff since I was a kid with the Marvel, what if comic books in the 80s.
You're gonna go there.
What if Conan the Barbarian fought Thor? Things like what if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four, and then the
very first one.
Yeah, it was the first one in like 1972 or something like that. But what if you think about things like Heinlein's Future History? It's the future, but it's the past. I think it's a way to just engage every part of our brain at once. And then when you start incorporating it into games, something as cliched as Space Romans, or something, or like Weird World War II, right? Like Dust
Nice
1947. You've got mechs fighting the Japanese and the Germans. It's all. Some folks like their sci-fi weird. I tend to like a little bit of weird in my sci-fi. I don't like it too. If there was something like Dino De Laurentiis's Flash Gordon on one spectrum, and then like Star Trek: The Next Generation on the other spectrum, I'd want to go more weird than more mainstream for my sci-fi. But your mileage may vary. I think that that's a big appeal to me. What about you, Shadow? What appeals to you about alternate history, alternate realities
Oh my God.
in your science
Well,
fiction?
one thing you made me just think of right now is that it's not only baked into our games, but it's actually baked into humanity. If you think about it, if you go all the way back, we are the only creature that ponders such things as far as we know. And
Right,
if it wasn't for our imagination to think about what if this or that, we would never have had any inventions and we'd still be hunter gatherers. We thought, what if I take this stick and attach a sharp rock to it so I can poke at the animal from far away instead of trying to, just wrestle it to the ground and not get eaten, but eat it. From that very beginning, we thought in the way of what if I do this or what if I do that. But for me, as many of you may know or have heard me spout before, I don't do Earth when it comes to games. I'm trying to escape this planet. I've been stuck here for 56 years, and I'm still looking for a legitimate way off, and into one of those alternate realities or dimensions, so that I can go and experience and do the things and explore this great creation of ours, akin to the Solar Surfer. If I were to die and go to heaven, that would be my heaven, flying through the universe, going from planet to planet just to explore and see the sights and meet the people and do that sort of thing. I've always been just drawn to that idea that this creation, if you've ever seen a picture of space, one of the big pictures, the Horsehead Nebula, and things like that. Those those vistas, the absolute majesty of what outer space looks like compared to what we see here, just looking up at the moon and the stars. What's really out there is just mind-boggling. And for me, it does come into my I'm not going to say belief in aliens, but my hope that there's more out there.
right.
It seems like it's so beautiful to look at. There's got to be even more beauty contained therein. And then
And
when you put, go for it.
no, 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 I want you to finish this train of thought because I want to ask you some questions about it and add to it. And I also want to address RPG Grandma's point because I think there are 2 points there regarding gaming specifically. One, have you ever had like a TPK and then say, "Oh, just kidding, that was a dream or that was an alternate reality, and we're gonna go back and try it again." There's also a
Never
really
done that.
interesting mechanic. There's a mechanic in one of Avengers. I think wasn't one of the Chalt books. It was the one that I reviewed. The brain farting. RPG pun, not RPG pundit. The other one, Venture Satanis, did a role playing game where you accumulated points by doing heroic deeds, and then if you died, you took those points and rolled on a table, a resurrection table, and one of the possibilities was your clone, your exact character, comes through an alternate reality portal, and you take over that character before you left off again. That was it'll come in a minute. That was one of his games, one of his OSR games that was sort of congruent with Chalt, but I think it was one of the ones that was only available online. I'm kicking myself for not remembering. Crimson something. It'll come back to me. So the question is, have you done those things? Have you in your games?
I've never done the do over death thing. To be honest, it's been I haven't had a TPK since I was first into the hobby. I've had, usually one player death is enough to wake up the rest of the group to what the hell was that? What are we doing? Let's fix this before we end up on the same sort of, you know, situation. But I want to believe that there's so much more out there. So
Okay,
I make it so. I
that's
make it
safe.
so with my game.
You're talking about leaving this world, and not to drift off topic, but remember there are three mathematical, or at least three physical points to consider. One, the Fermi paradox, right? If the universe is so big, why have aliens not tried to contact us? That goes in contact with Planck's number, who says that for every so many stars, there are also so many habitable planets. For every so many
Right.
habitable planets, so many of them are technologically advanced, and we still haven't come in contact with any of them yet. And then we're
Right.
limited by the speed of light. The light barrier seems to be a fence around our part of the galaxy. So if the next nearest star is 5 light years away, even if you could travel at the speed of light, it would take 5 years to get there. For everyone else, even if you got there instantaneously. So there are all these things, this like fence around the universe that makes us believe that if we're alone intentionally. If we're alone, we're alone. There's some reason that we're alone. It's not just chance. And that's just the thought I had while you were talking about wanting to leave the galaxy and leave the universe. And I'm sorry to drag it off topic.
No,
Um,
not at all. Not at all. There's always room to branch off and go into weird directions with these. And I think Roger would approve. He wrote so many stories with so many different ideas, and the Amber Chronicles was my favorite, with one exception, because of the character's ability to go to these places literally of their imagination. They had the ability to walk between realities, and by focusing on what they wanted to find when they got there, they would, it would take, an amount of time depending on what they were trying to reach. If you want to go to a planet made of Swiss cheese, then you just picture it and walk until you get there. And lo and behold, you'll be on a planet of Swiss cheese. Nothing ever that goofy. It was more realistic places and things, and some well established places. Earth being just one of the many different shadow realities that were out there. It's just, for me, it makes so much sense that we we entertain the idea in our games. Even from the earliest beginnings, Dungeons and Dragons had the different planes of existence, the elemental planes, the alignment planes, if as it were to simplify it, and the alternate realities out there. There would be, you know, uh, literally an unlimited supply of them. And why not, take a couple and make them my own? Why not just, literally colonize and conquer a few dimensions? They're mine, and this is where I hold court and oversee my adventuring parties, and watch what they do, and hopefully encourage them to enjoy the heck out of them with their own imaginations within my little playground in the great scheme of things. It's just, it was just perfectly natural. I just feel that I really had no other choice but to do these things. From the earliest beginnings of reading comic books and fantasy and fiction novels, and the Travis Walton experience was a big deal to my young mind. Seeing that on television as real news, that people were acknowledging that this could be a thing, a real thing. It wasn't just obviously a lot of people thought it was a hoax, but that's not how they went about talking about it. They allowed for the possibility of it being a real thing, allowed me to think that, well, if this is possible, what else might be possible out there? What other things are we missing because we're stuck here on this, this particular planet at this particular time? How can we say for certain that there aren't all these other grand things out there just waiting for, maybe not us, but our great grandchildren? Or who knows, at any moment we could make that breakthrough technological discovery, and before we know it, we are you know going light speed to other planets and visiting people, and take it from there.
Let me ask you a follow-up question then. I mean, talking about these things in relation to gaming, the feel, the attitude to me, this feels like something that's almost missing from new role playing games or new role playing game players. This has got a very um, old school role playing feel to it. You know, this has got that Arneson, Tecumel, Hargreaves feel to it, right? This is if we're trying to
Mm-hmm.
replicate this in our games, we're trying not Gonzo, not quite that far into left field, but close to it, right? This is the weird kind of anything goes role playing that you just don't see from Pathfinder, fifth edition D&D, and I just not to denigrate them for a change, but this is the kind of stuff to me that you just want to crack the bones and suck the marrow out of.
Yeah, well, I think that it kind of ties in with part of tonight's tribute to a great writer. So many of the things people are consuming in the way of entertainment and reading these days are some newer novels. Let's say it seems to me that there is this hesitancy to go back and look toward the earliest beginnings of writing and sort of take that shortcut by reading the people who read the people who read the people, whatever, number one bestseller. Oh, well, they're better than the people that came before them, when in fact they're, standing on their shoulders, so to speak. They invariably read all the greats, and there's sort of a lack of, you know, interest to do so. And I'm still working my way through the great authors of the old days, so I haven't read a lot of the new stuff because I'm getting there, my way, I guess. But starting with the old stuff, and hopefully someday I'll get to the stuff that's modern now, decades from now, and there'll be other new stuff that will have also benefited
So
benefited from having read the great authors to come up with these new ideas, because some of the newer authors, they're going to pick and choose what they like, and quite possibly miss out on the good stuff, or the true message, by wanting to change it and make it their own, that concept, whatever that might be. And I want to take it all in, and I'll get there. I'm reading more and more stuff every day, things I never thought I would read. Like we were talking about Jonah Hex. When I was a kid, he was kind of creepy and scary, and I just really, I would get them from time to time from friends who'd
right,
loan me their collections, or give me their, hey, I got some old comics, you want them? Sure. And I'd read a couple, and I'm like, oh, this guy's creepy. I'll read it, but
right,
I'm going to read that Iron Man instead. I'd rather read that, or whatever. And now as I get older, I'm like appreciating some of those things like that
right.
as a kid I couldn't understand, and now as a grown ass man, I can understand and appreciate better. And I think there's a real lack of that with a lot of modern gamers. They read the player's handbook and think they're ready to go. Maybe as a DM, they'll just read those books and think, I know it all. No, you really don't. There's so much more to being a good game master, regardless of the genre, than just reading the books and memorizing a whole bunch of mechanical rules and definitions. You need the inspiration. Maybe you'll get it. I know as a youngster, when I first started dungeon mastering, I thought I had plenty to go by, and I was rather content to use what I had and role play, and that's not bad. That's not a bad thing. But it seems to me the older school guys have this voracious appetite. We can never, sorry guys, we literally can never get enough time to read and absorb all these great stories and concept and ideas. And it doesn't have to just be science fiction or fantasy. I know a lot of us read you know um, a lot of things that just help us out, whether it's our everyday lives, or these questions that we have about different topics that like Connell says, every once in a while he's got to read a nonfiction book to sort of cleanse the palate. I do a great deal of that, and for the most part, it helps out with my gaming one way or another. If I can't do like both at the same time, it's probably not going to get done.
That's a whole nother animal. I mean, when I look at my day, I told you every minute of my day is regimented, and it's like I can build a model or a mini, or I can read a rule book, game book, or I can try to read a novel, but I can't do all three. So pick
Mhm.
one, see what happens, and maybe I can listen to a book or on tape or watch part of a movie when I'm at work when I'm in my downtime. But other than that, my goodness, at this point, I feel like I'm just coasting on the things that I've read and watched and done 20 years ago, because those things never became games. But I mean, yes, I would love to read more, or yeah, or watch watch a quality movie. But in the meantime, until I find a way to clone myself, or not have to sleep,
Uh,
I can just not sleep. But um,
um,
things tend to go
that
on
that
hold.
deprives you of one of the most important aspects of life, and that is to sleep, to dream. I cannot tell you how getting certain things out of my regular diet improved that, and now I literally cannot wait to get to sleep, to dream, to open up those alternate realities, which I truly believe they are. In some way, they're connected to that. There's something there's something magical about dreaming when you wake up and you can still remember what it was. To be we had a game last night, and after the game, I spoke with Omanal and that darn cat for many hours. It was almost 2 o'clock in the
Was
morning
that
where
last
we
night?
stopped talking. That was last night. Yes, we
Yeah, no,
we we you missed out, but at the same time, maybe not. Sometimes the topics, it was kind of, no offense to anybody, but it was kind of, a little bit of a bitch session on the current state of the world, and it was perfectly healthy, and it was actually a wonderful way for us to all, kind of bond, I think, which was good that you weren't there. No offense, as a group of players versus the DM kind of thing.
yeah, absolutely.
It gave us, it gave us, a little deeper level to our friendship.
Sure.
And I literally went to sleep and freaking dreamed of Omanao and my son, and I believe it was Kevin doing some rather mundane things. You know what I mean? But it was there were things that they could literally happen in an alternate dimension or reality if a whole bunch of things were different, but it wasn't like it wasn't scary or bad or even wonderful. It was just weird, just stuff that you know just weird mundane things that we were stuck in a weird situation, because I guess we lived near each other or something, which is exactly how alternate realities would be. They'd be a little different, the further away you get from the original source, they would change, maybe it's only one tiny little thing per alternate dimension or reality. And you've got to go like millions, if not quadrillions of steps away from the original to get to that really weird thing that you're trying to get to, where Spider-Man is a real person. I mean, you probably have to travel through millions of alternate dimensions, with each one having only one little tiny aspect different than the next. Sort of like I always likened it to pages on graph paper. um, I pick a middle page in the pad of the graph paper. That's where you are. And above and below you are all these different dimensions, but the dimension you're in is really just one little square. And every square out is also another dimension, which brings me to one of my favorite just sort of not necessarily silly, but mechanical dimensions that I put my players through from time to time, where it is literally like when you're standing in the holodeck and it's turned off
Right.
and it's just that grid pattern.
Right.
It's just like that, but with like these sort of beams of light showing you the different grids. And as you get to this, when you arrive in that dimension, you're in one little square, but you can see all the other squares. And each time you pass through another square, something's a little bit different and a little bit different, sort of like, the behind the scenes mechanics of the architecture of alternate dimensions and realities, until you start getting into the more full and filled out dimensions, as if, the architect that built all of everything, had to have sort of a framework to start with, and decided to go with straight lines and cubes and things like that. And until you get, as you travel to weirder and weirder and weirder places, that Grandma and a few others were bringing up the word Gonzo. That's what it's all about. It's
Sometimes.
letting your imagination be unhindered by anyone else's conventions of thought, and just be free to explore whatever comes to mind, and bring those with you who are interested. As you play, you're going to lose people. They're like, this is not for me. And they're going to fall behind the wayside, as you trek through your gaming life and real life, etc. Those that stick with you are the heroes.
So let me ask you a question then. If you were going to start a campaign, I know you said you don't like to play games on Earth, but say it's not on Earth, say it's anywhere else. You think about like degrees of an angle, or ripples in a pond. The
Mm-hmm.
divergence is close at the point of divergence, but as it tracks out, the differences become greater and greater. Think about a world where maybe somebody found Leonardo da Vinci's notebook and made even one of his inventions in the 1500s. Think about the change
Mm-hmm.
that might have made upon our reality. If somebody made a working submarine, or a working parachute, or a working helicopter in like 1500. So think about that. If you were going to start a sci-fi, any game, doesn't be a sci-fi game, maybe not a fantasy game,
Mm-hmm.
because that's when you experiment, you can only change one variable at a time. You can't have a world where you have an
Right.
alternate reality and magic without making things too weird. So let's just say no magic for a minute. What kind of alternate reality campaign would you like to play? What if China
Me,
started in San Francisco? What if Vikings
I would
kept their
I'd probably try to incorporate, my favorite time period, that being the Old West, and find some way to keep the tropes of it into the modern era. The whether it be the cowboy hats and the style of dress, or just the uh, toxic masculinity, or any of the other things that have more or less fallen by the wayside, that did make that genre still to this day so attractive. My son was downstairs playing Red Dead. The game, saw its heyday, Red Dead 2, and there's still people playing online in that version and what have you. And there's new stuff coming out. But even this young, audience of my son's age, 14 and a little bit older, a little bit younger, they can still find something about it that's so appealing. And yet there are fewer and fewer places here on Earth where you can walk outside and see that sort of lifestyle still, going on. There are a few places like that.
well,
Um,
let's flesh
but
that out. It'd be like maybe I play a world where the telegraph was never invented until later, or a time where the steam locomotive wasn't invented until much later. Think about if
Mhm.
there was no intercontinental railroad until 1950 or something like that. How would that have affected the West? If there was no telegraph until 1910, how would that have affected the West? So those would be questions you could ask yourself as you develop your
Right.
alternate Wild West campaign? What if the South had won the Civil War? That might be a little taboo for some listeners. That's something I don't mind addressing because I'm not in any way, shape, or form politically correct. But
Nor am I. And believe it or not, uh, it may be taboo in certain circles, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's quite a few of us that like to game out that particular conflict, and not because we wish it ended the other way. That's a common misconception. While it is, I'm certain, true in some circles, those being very tiny, tiny, smooth-brained circles. I know they exist. I'm not gonna, try to, brush that under the rug. But I know there are many people who just would like to envision themselves how they would have done it better. Defeated X, army at this location at this date, and fought that battle differently. I know that's what wargaming is essentially
historical,
about, is
that's what
putting
historical
yourself.
war games are. You're right. Absolutely. Historical war games is about saying, look, we're going to take the exact same factions, the exact same units, put in the exact same terrain, and then maybe experiment, change one factor. What if I had one more tank division? What if you had one more infantry division? What if D-Day would have happened the day before, like it was supposed to, on the 4th instead of the 5th, right? What if
Right.
there wouldn't have been any overcast? What would have happened? I mean, what if what if Rommel would have had the ability to do whatever he wanted in Normandy instead of being constrained by the German high command? Things to think about that are like legitimate, to build legitimate alternate realities.
Absolutely. What if Ringo was actually a really good drummer?
Oh, ouch. Shots fired. Shots fired. What if Ringo was a good movie?
That's an oldie but a goodie. I swiped that from Red Dwarf. Grandma reminded me of what an absolutely incredible story that was, and I didn't miss what you said about the Rimmer and the yellow badge, the gold badge thing, Grandma. When I saw that, I almost cried. I'm not gonna lie. When I took in what they had been saying throughout the whole story, that Smeghead is actually the hero. It just blew me away, and to this day, every once in a while when I think of that show, I simultaneously want to laugh and weep all afternoon. If you've never seen Red Dwarf, please do yourself the monumental favor and watch every single episode as quick as you can. God, what a brilliant show. We need more shows like that. They don't have to be science fiction or fantasy, just that sort of, you know, incredible love and care given to the story, the characters, and the punchline at the end. Exactly, Grandma. I'm trying to get my son to watch so many things, and it's so very hard. We're just not, a TV big screen family. I blame it all on the boy. Ever since he got his first, tablet or whatever, he's learned so much from YouTube and other things like that, and it terrifies me that not once has he ever been inclined to go look up porn like a normal teenager. He's too busy learning history and politics and religion and science and all these things that I totally took for granted in my upbringing and was more busy watching uh, or reading fiction and fantasy or how to do babies get bored. um, uh, yeah, I don't even want to think about that because that will just tear me completely off topic, Grandma. But thank you for reminding me of one of my top five favorite, television slash big screen experiences. I heard that Stephen Colbert, of all people, a man I used to really enjoy, and then came to absolutely despise, wants to take a swing at the Amber Chronicles, and I literally almost lost it. you know, sorry, Omen, I just cannot stand that man. He went from being such a genius in comedy to just losing his ever loving mind,
He's a
and to think that he
spiteful
would
man.
to think that he would have anything to do with with any of Roger Zelazny's work. I know for a fact Zelazny would punch him, would literally kung fu his ass into the next reality if he was able to right here and now. Um, but yikes, there are so many good examples of alternate realities. There was Stargate was a good one, I think, um, because I always like to think that sometimes those Stargates could take you to an alternate reality or dimension instead of just a planet. But even still, another planet is kind of like an alternate reality or dimension because of the sheer difficulty it is, at least for us, to get there. You know, exactly, Shauner, and worse. I seriously think he was on the old flight log, if you know what I'm saying. Hey, Squirrel, welcome to the show. I really digged your shows earlier, Shauner. I just don't know who that guy is you were talking about. Uh, Never watched a single one of his videos, and I'm pretty sure I never will again. But thanks for that. Your shows are always entertaining at the very least, and educational for those who have the eyes and ears to pay attention. So, have you ever done the alternate reality thing in your games, or do you just kind of stick to a one dimension?
Well, no, because I've mostly played. Well, no, I played alternate history. I played Cyberpunk in the '90s, and looking back at it,
Okay.
it's so incredibly cheesy. What we thought the internet would be. Um,
Mhm.
but it's funny. I've got a source book. I've got the Infinite World source book, and I haven't really looked at it because I think that it's not a trope that a lot of people want to play. You know, imagine playing something like Sliders or something like that, where you travel through time and space, and every place you land might have the same rules of physics, but not the same rules of maybe decorum or history or even morality. Um, and I've said I've got the book, but I don't know if anyone would ever have any interest in playing something like that, where you play something like I don't know, something like a Time Lord from Doctor Who, or a multi-dimensional policeman or something like that. The
Right.
concept is fun to think about, but I think that making a campaign like that work would take just the effort that it would take both players and the game master to run is daunting, especially for a
You
filthy
know,
casual like me.
I
Dirty,
thought that
filthy
at
casual.
first until I likened it to two things. One, the original series of Star Trek,
Yeah,
where each world was, how many times did they go to an alternate Earth in
right,
that show? You know what I mean?
right.
But also going to alternate, other planets. That this, for example, tonight's game, my players are going to go to this strange new place that make up whatever
That's
rules and
funny.
situation. Pardon?
I said that's funny. Going to a world
Oh,
where Seinfeld, where the George character is always the good one, and Jerry's always the troll. That would be, or Kramer's the straight man, and Jerry's the foil. That would be. Carry on.
um, using that as an example, it's not. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to go any further than just the one world. You go into an alternate dimension, and you got to land somewhere. here's the world. Are you going to let them go from that world in that dimension to yet another world? Or are they just going to try to find the doorway back home? Which, for many people is always the goal, is to just get back home because, oh my God, other dimension, I don't want to be there. Why not? I said that would be incredible. Think of how many things you could, redo.
Everybody say hi to Mrs. Paints Minis.
Hey, nice to meet you. Heard wonderful things about you.
Oh, thanks. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
I just
know why.
I just got called to supper, but let's give it a few minutes before I go to supper.
Fair enough.
All right. So
just imagine. I mean, so many things you could do if you were to go to an alternate Earth. It's only a little bit different. That's why I like Sliders so much. That was like the ultimate in dimension hopping examples that there really is, to show what you can do on the most simplistic level. So many times it was just a world just a little bit different.
Exactly.
But that was enough.
A little bit different.
It was more than enough to
that's
give
what
you just 45-minute episode, and what can we do in it? Because they're going to go back, or maybe even not go back, but go on to the next dimension. In their never-ending quest to try to make it back home. And why the heck not, right? There was this comic book that I really loved. I think it was called Death's Head, but I could be wrong. I don't know why I'm thinking that. But it was about this organization that had created an interdimensional portal thing. And what they did was they sent these groups of people in to go into the new dimension and steal technology and bring it back. That was it. It was just that. They would just go there and just grab whatever you cool crap you can, samples or technology or whatever, and then just come back to the portal and here's your paycheck. So I ran a game like that, where I really explored the idea of the whatever government or agency it was or corporation that found a way to open a friggin' portal, and keep turning the channel, to get different portals. Can you imagine what you could gain from that? In the way of adventure for the away team, let's call them.
Right.
And every time they're bringing stuff back that, after, so many hours of R&D, they're going to hand the party new equipment. Sometimes the party will grab something and say, I'm keeping this, shh, don't tell anybody, and then they've got their own little, gear. And, after dozens or so missions, losing people and new characters coming in, it's just pure thievery. But at the same time, if a government developed a device like that, that's what they would be thinking to do. Go send some guys in there, grab some stuff and bring it back, and let's see what we can learn from it and how we can, better our situation in this particular dimension. And, try not to piss anybody off who might also have interdimensional travel, so that they track us back down and try to get their stuff back, which, ended up being part of the overall arcing plot was, well, this particular planet you stole from, they figured it out, and they're now trying to get their stuff back.
On that vein, then, would you consider, like from literature, things like Robert E. Howard or the Call of Cthulhu? Would you consider those based in alternate realities or alternate alternate Earths?
Absolutely,
because
absolutely.
That's
and I've even allowed people. I don't know if you remember, but there was this thing called the Amulet of the Plains back in the old DMG.
Sure.
And it had X number of different places it could take you, and the DM would, decide which, depending on which gem you push, that would open the portal to this or that dimension, plane, or what have you. And one of them was alternate, Earths or, other places besides the stereotypical, trademark Dungeons and Dragons planes of existence.
Sure.
And I would allow my players who eventually got one of those to, sometimes ask me to, hey, can we play Conan-like game, or can we go to Melbourne, or can we go to Nuon? Not necessarily to meet Grey Mouser and Fafford, but we noticed you got the supplements. We know you're itching to play it. Well, give us a tour.
Sure.
And so I would do that, or Thieves World, which I wish I had never gotten rid of, because it was one of the few early fantasy game expansions that allowed for traveler characters to land on the Thieves World and go run around and play and bump into the NPCs and do the things. It was really quite amazing that people even back then were thinking like that. Communist China planet, Native American planet, the gangster planet. Hey, Sean, how's it going?
I might someday our Friday night campaign. I didn't say game. I said campaign. Someday our Friday night campaign will end, and my next campaign will be an alternate Earth, kind of, where the players will be Solomon Kane-esque inquisitors working for some kind of Anglican church, going throughout the world on sailing ships, fighting monsters and cultists and slaying eldritch beasts. And all of the players
have you read all the Solomon Kane stories?
Swashbucklers and inquisitors and all of those kinds. If somebody wants to be a pistolero with like 8 flintlocks, like Blackbeard, or somebody has maybe somebody who's a North African pirate, or a swashbuckler. That's the next game, the next campaign in this game someday, and I hope you play it with me.
Did you read the entirety of the Solomon Kane stories?
Years ago, I've read the Cull and Bran McMorn and Solomon Kane and the Robert E. Howard Conan. I'm trying to go back through them again now, as I can, but it's been a minute since I read them all. That was a big thing.
Same here. I just finished the Solomon Kane. There's really not a lot to that character in the way of work.
But it paints a picture.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's so much in between that leaves room for your imagination to run wild. What happened between this chapter and this chapter, or I should say this story and this story. I love the way he and Conan's stories had those big gaps that allowed you to, there'll just be a little tidbit, the paragraph before the actual story to kind of roughly get you, from the previous story to the next one. But that opened up the career for a score of other writers to fill in those gaps. And I really love that idea. I think Fritz Lieber might have done the same thing, but it's been even longer, and I really need to reread those books.
Yeah.
Another.
Well, this campaign is. I want to make, and I know that nobody. I thought that if the players had like a contact where Solomon Kane was a Puritan, have these guys have agents of like like an Anglican or a Roman type church, where they're going out and they're agents of an Inquisition with a license to hunt evil wherever they find it. Yeah. Whether they're on sailing ships and sailing to deepest, darkest Africa, or Brazil, or something like that, hunting. Antarctica, hunting heretics in the West Indies. It's just an idea that I came up with a while back, and I really want to flesh it out, and it's a game that I really want to play. So,
sign me up. Unless I'm otherwise indisposed in some other alternate dimension. My Fridays are permanently open.
we're going to be playing this campaign for a good long time. Don't worry about that.
I enjoy that. It's definitely got a lot of room to grow, and uh, it's been a lot of fun. It really has.
Maybe you guys will
I
fall. Maybe your guys will fall into an alternate dimension.
I can actually see how that could happen in a score of different ways with what's going on. It it wouldn't be hard to shoehorn it in, so to speak, with very little effort, and I don't think anybody would mind too much. And
No,
in a way, I
a,
could see how some people
a thin spot in the
uh,
warp, and you fall
would
into a Dyson
prefer
sphere.
that. Hmm. Yeah, I've been really lucky this last year. I would have, if you would have told me this was the kind of things I'd be doing a year or two ago, I would have called you a liar. I would not have believed how much fun I've actually had gaming online compared to some of the at the table games I had in the old days, just because of the experience and years of gaming. And let's face it, almost everybody we hang out with is more or less seasoned veteran of being a game master, as opposed to the old days where there was just that one guy,
Right.
and everybody else was just the player. And getting to play with you know fellow GMs is actually a big a big step toward gaming better. You know, take that however you want. There's so much to be gained from gaming with people who take it a little bit more serious instead of the usual crowd of Mountain Dew chip guzzling tourists, so to speak. They're
Oh,
just there for the good time.
you
They
guys
don't
keep me
they
like
they've never
this.
put in the work. No offense to you Mountain Dew fans out there, but if you haven't GM'd, you're only you're still kind of a newbie in the gaming world. You know, even if you've been a player for 50 years, there's something vastly different from being a player than to being a GM. Uh, the pressure and the joy of creating new worlds and new realities and dimensions and concepts for a group of adventurers to
Mhm.
experience.
Until the experienced players just got and smoked the bad guy the first turn, and then
Right.
drop a
Well,
grenade on everyone that survives.
right. Thanks for that. No, it's just it's really a different approach and attitude toward it. Most of the more experienced people that I deal with, it really isn't about the combat. It's more about like everything else. They've done enough combat to last 100 lifetimes. They want to experience the moments and the interactions with the NPCs and heck, even the other players on a just a different, more concrete level, more almost real perspective. I know the immersive players that are looking for that must have just a heightened imagination gene, as it were, if it's such a thing that just they crave something completely different.
So
Maybe
RPG
that's
Channel, what are you doing
part
on
of
Friday
being.
nights? What are you doing on Friday nights? uh, she says online is fun and everything sounds like fun. And, our group is always, our group, except for me, everyone in the group's really experienced. So I just make up for it with BS. If you can't blind him with brilliance, dazzle him with bull pucky.
Agreed, Sean. More than just being a GM, but learning to do it impartially with no vested interest in how things turn out. You're right.
I'm going to
Too many
disagree with that in
people.
a minute. I want your opinion, but then I'm going to disagree. I'm going to offer an alternate view.
I've been in a lot of games in the past where especially like modules and things like that, where there's a definitive finish line. You win, or when you get to this point, it's the end. On to either the next adventure, or you can close that chapter, so to speak. And why can't we keep going back to that chapter if it was fun and there's still things to do there? Why do we have to go on to the next kingdom because we cleared the only dungeon for miles around the kingdom? There's nothing else to do. Well, that's a load of
Oh,
malarkey.
that's
There's always something to do. There's always a thief in the party getting his butt in trouble. I mean, that's what they're there for, isn't it? To you know constantly need bail money, or a jailbreak, or something like that, or maybe they found something that's worthy of a group heist. You know, I just I like to kind of be uh, a spectator as much as a GM. I want to see what they're going to do. I want them to you know. Surprise and impress me with their brilliance, etc. Not caring one way or the other, uh, other than that they they have as an enjoyable time as they can to want to come back. And if not, then I'll learn something from that, and try to remedy the situation. I've rarely had people up and quit because of a bad game. It's always other things, life, moving away, getting married, having kids, getting a new job, things like that. Um, you have to be able to roll with those punches. That's going to happen. But now that we've got these handy dandy gadgets, there's really no excuse to break up the band. Well, okay, so we don't play on Friday nights. Well, what other night is there? Okay, or maybe Fred can't make it on Friday nights, so now we're going to play two different nights. Fred and Barney will be on Saturdays, and Betty and Wilma will be on Friday nights, or something like that. Um,
and that's why I don't want to be impartial. So I don't want I do want to have a vested interest in how things turn out, and because I want not for individual players. I don't want Shadow to have a leg up over Omen. I don't want Omen to have a leg up over Mark. I don't want Mark to leg up over Kevin. But I want the game to progress, and I want the party to succeed. Now, without throwing too many bones to the party, and I want the game to flow.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I
I
do
should have.
have.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not
clearly,
impartial. I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm
oh,
not impartial. Not completely
impartial is
impartial.
probably the wrong word. I'm going to root for them, but I'm not going to help them out. If they all die, then we all learn from it and move on. I'm just like you said. I'm not going to help them out. I'm not going to give them any freebies. But I am going to hope that they make it to game another day. And if not, if somebody you know bites the dust, okay, make up a new character. You know, uh, it really should be like that. I mean, how many groups of friends or circles of friends do you have that that people are no longer with us? They've passed on to the next reality, but someone has filled their place.
Getting
You
to that
know,
age.
um, it's happened to me a couple of times, and my original circle of friends from not necessarily high school or college. It was actually a little bit after that was my longest running group of gamer buds. Some of them are no longer with us, and some of them have been replaced by other people. Um, and that happens. Theoretically, if you had, like, say you had a group of four players, and you start playing at this point in time, in the course of a couple of years, all four of those characters could be gone, but replaced by four new characters, and it's still the same, you know, story.
Right.
Maybe it's the same quest, maybe it's different members of the original four families, now it's the grandkids or the great grandkids. I like doing that a lot. Instead of you know characters dying, maybe their injuries are such that it's now time for the oldest boy to take over the father's spot in the group,
Right.
or the oldest daughter or something like that. Or Joey got killed, but now his older sister is hunting down the culprit with the other three characters from the party. That trope is just begging to be mined for gold when it comes to making sense of the passing away of characters, but not the passing away of players.
Well, like I said, we're getting
It's a little right. It's a little for me. It's a little hard to swallow that this one particular group of adventurers has cleared out every dungeon on your planet, and done all the things just them. You know what I mean? I've seen that where you've got this party of like 12th or 15th level characters, and they've done everything on the planet. They should literally be the rock stars of your planet because everybody's now heard of them, and they literally can't go anywhere and get a moment's peace because people are tugging on their capes. One, can you rescue my cat out of the tree? Can I have your autograph? Kind of thing.
All right. Well, if I don't go eat supper, Mrs. Pain's Minis is gonna murder me in cold blood.
No
I
worries. We actually
apologize
started
for ducking
a
out.
little bit
I
late,
will try to catch
and
you tonight on the Quantum Show if I can.
yeah,
To
I'm going
make
to be
it
heading out to do that. I just wanted to, before you go, thank you. Last night was a great game. Give the wife and kids a hug for us, and make sure you thank them, for parting with your presence, on Friday nights for us. We really
And
do appreciate
before
that.
I leave, please give my channel a watch. Bo Paints Minis. I
Absolutely.
have 48 whole subscribers, and if I get to 50, I promise to celebrate with a live stream. And I will. And you can ask me anything. We'll have an AMA, a live AMA. And I have to send you a message later on about one of those things we went over. Want to have a private chat with you about. So um,
Yeah, no
thanks to
worries.
everyone that showed me, and I'm serious, Grandma. There's always room for you at the table. I've seen some of your stuff. You're pretty awesome when it comes to your knowledge of games. I remember your stuff with Arduin, I think it was. So yeah, I'll talk to y'all later. All right.
Take care, bud. So there you have it, folks. That was Bo from Bo Paints Minis, and to be honest, I don't know how he's only got 48, 49 subs. That's just a crime. He's such a well-meaning young man. Yeah, I know, right? He's almost as old as I am. But let's share out his videos. He's really working hard at this. Actually, probably harder than I am. I'm just winging it every single time with me and the boy. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, every single one of you. We've all been hanging out quite a bit over the last year, and I really appreciate it and enjoy the heck out of everything every one of you does, from the smallest to the greatest amongst you. You guys figure that out. I think you're all great. Every one of you does something so unique, and for the people that are going to watch this later on, don't be afraid to speak up and introduce yourself and make yourself known. Um, there's no such thing as too many friends. That's something that I've always strived to do, is to be a good friend and to have good friends. And um, each and every one of you have been part of that journey for me and my son, and for that we are more grateful than you could possibly imagine. The last couple of years really kicked some butt in the worst possible ways, and I think this is the best way to fight back against all of that, is to go out and make some friends and some connections and enjoy the heck out of each other. Um, you know, Whatever that means to you guys. not in the weird way or anything like that, unless that's your bag, baby. Um, just go out there and play these games, enjoy the heck out of them, and always feel free. You can contact me anytime you want to just talk, or try to get a game together. You know, TCG is uh, pretty new to the group, so to speak, and already he's uh, going to be GMing for the guys over on Table Breakers. You know, that's pretty big. Uh, a couple of months ago we didn't know him from Adam, and now he's overcome some obstacles, and he's gonna put himself out there and open himself up to you know the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you've seen my one-on-one with him, you'll understand what I'm talking about. He's a great kid, and I look forward to seeing him as much as I do each and every one of you. A couple of you more than the others. Um, just kidding, guys. Travis, I love you too, buddy. I wish you would have showed up a little earlier, but you can always rewind it. I'm going to go hang out and talk about even weirder stuff on the Quantum Show with Nathan Allen. Uh, it's been a long week, and I need to confess my sins. No, just talk about something that's not gaming. Some of my other interests. I hope to see those of you who are interested. Again, that will be the Quantum Show with Nathan Allen. And until next time, you know what I'm going to say, right, guys? Happy trails.